I'd like to call to order the August 29th, 2017 regular board meeting of the Princeton Board of Education. Welcome to this public meeting of the Princeton Board of Education. The board is an elected, unpaid group of 10 citizens who set policy and make decisions on educational, financial, and personnel matters for the Princeton Public Schools on behalf of all of its residents. We're always pleased when members of the community attend our meetings. The board and the school district operate under applicable New Jersey laws and under regulations of the New Jersey State Board of Education. Each meeting includes 3 opportunities for those attending to comment on items on the published agenda or of other matters of interest to them. There are 3. One is an open period in the beginning of the meeting, coming up very soon, and then one in the middle for agenda items only, and then finally an open comment period at the end. The board reserves the right to limit the time allotted to public participation. Law limits discussion of individual personnel and confidential matters. We hope that our meetings provide useful opportunities for communication between the board and the community, so thank you for attending. And with that, Ms. Kennedy, would you call the roll?
Patrick Sullivan.
Here.
Daphne Kendall, absent. Betsy Baglio, absent. Debbie Braunfeld.
Here.
Justin Doran.
Here.
Bill Hare.
Here.
Vern Sproul.
Here.
Greg Stankiewicz.
Here.
Connie Witter.
Here.
Evelyn Spahn, absent. Brian Liu, absent. Amy Wang. Here. Thank you.
Okay, and now D1 is a consent. Is there any comments on the minutes for the July 18th meeting?
That's an action one.
Oh, that is an action one. Oh, sorry, you're right. So we need a motion for the minutes. Justin, and a second. Debbie? Any comments or questions on the July 18th minutes? Okay, so hearing none, if you can see a show of hands to approve the minutes.
I know you vote.
Oh, it's a vote.
Yes.
Okay, boy, I'm missing things. Oh, right. No, that way. Okay.
Maybe not. I'll check. Online is open for voting, so.
I'm pretty sure you were not.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you
It
were
was
too.
it was a dull meeting without you being
It
here.
was.
Yeah.
You can't remember, that's how dull it was.
Yeah. Okay. Let me know when we're ready.
Okay.
You're ready.
All right.
And for board members and members of the public, if you remember, we have moved all of our votes on matters that don't require a roll call vote to the end, and we'll do one sort of omnibus vote at the end on all consent agenda items. But we will go through the agenda and talk and raise any questions or issues around each of the things in the order that's in the agenda. So with that, we're on item E, which is the public forum. First public forum, this is an open topic for members of the public to speak on any matter at all, whether it's on the agenda or not. And if we have any takers, I would just ask that you identify yourself and where you live before you begin your talk. But if we don't see anyone approaching the microphone, we can move on. Okay, one last chance. So now we're on agenda item F, which is the board president's report. I'll keep it brief. It's the summertime. But I would say that as usual, I'm very excited about all the changes that are happening around the district. Summer seems like a quiet time for our kids and for our families, but there's a lot of activity in this building and in all the buildings as the teachers do all the things that they're doing in the summer to get ready for the new year. We, as a board, are continuing to plan for a facilities referendum. It's very complicated given how many moving pieces there are in this town and the options that are available to us and options that are not available to us. But we're looking very closely at all the things that we need to do there, and there'll be a lot of news on that in the fall. A lot of the summer news is sort of moving on to the fall, unfortunately, but we continue to make changes at the high school. I think we're all excited to see how the new incoming freshman class reacts to the changes that Mr. Snyder, Mr. Cochran, and others have put together to hopefully lessen some of the stress on all the students, but especially the incoming freshman class, and focus on not only schedule but also homework, which to me is very near and dear to my heart. We continue generally to focus on the strategic plan, especially the item about what we call every child known, or differentiation in learning. There's so much talk about that now among the teachers. I'm really excited when a few years ago, before Steve, before you and I had put the years under our belt, we didn't hear that so much, but we're hearing it now, and it's very exciting to hear how things are moving along. For those of people in the public, we're excited about our labor relations. Our contract with the PREA has been approved and settled for the next 3 years, which is great news, a little bit old news now, but we think that our labor relations will continue to improve with all of our unions and our non-affiliated members. So that's another thing that we think is very important and excited about. And finally, we're continuing to seek equity for the way that charter schools in our state are funded. We will continue to work on finding justice and fairness for all the taxpayers in this town, and that is a process that continues as well. So a lot of things continuing, but they're all good and great news, and something that makes me very excited. And with that, Steve, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Patrick. Good evening, everyone. Those of you here tonight, those of you who may be watching at home. The start of a new school year is 1 week away, and we are ready and we are excited. I drove into work just last week, and all of our drivers were out washing the buses. Our classrooms are clean. We have written new curriculum. We've hired dozens of new staff. We had hundreds of teachers this summer who participated in learning opportunities associated with our new summer teaching academy. So we are ready to come together as a family of educators. We're ready to welcome a diversity of students into our classrooms, and we're ready, quite honestly, to transform education in this community and in our country. As many of you may have read, earlier this summer, the Princeton Public Schools were once again recognized as the #1 school district in New Jersey, and I'm proud of I'm proud of what the staff, the students, the families in the district have done to help us achieve that distinction. But I'm even prouder that we aspire as a community to a higher standard of success. It's not just about test scores and college admissions, but our focus now and moving forward is on equity, which simply put, our goal is for every student, regardless of race, readiness level, learning style, economic background, to attain the highest possible levels of engagement, achievement, joy, and purpose. And central to that goal of equity is our continued focus on racial literacy. The events this summer that we all witnessed in Charlottesville underscore the critical need for all of us, adults, educators, students, to be able to talk openly and respectfully about race, to be able to welcome different perspectives and the experiences of different cultures, and to be able to stand with courage and dignity in the face of injustice. This summer we worked in earnest on this goal of equity and racial literacy. Dr. Tara Doty, who Fern was kind enough to introduce us to several years ago, began this summer with a 2-day workshop for staff on culturally responsive teaching. We developed a curriculum for a new elective at the high school on racial literacy, and our teachers spent time throughout the summer revising curriculum through the lens of equity, looking at culturally diverse literature, for example, in language arts, revising the US 1 curriculum that all of our freshmen take to begin with a unit on race and how we talk about it. Our new hires reflect our commitment to equity, as more than 28% of them are educators of color. I really want to thank all of our administrators for their commitment to hire great people, and I particularly want to thank our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, Lou Goldstein, for organizing a job fair on August 14th for educators of color. I think we had nearly 100 people come to that. Is that right, Lou? 94 people. We were aided in that by the community as well. Community organizations helped to get the word out. I also want to thank Lou for helping to organize our upcoming recruitment visits to historically black colleges and universities, which we're hoping to do this fall. The administrative team as a whole has adopted the theme of leading with equity. And we actually joined together with administrators from West Windsor-Plainsboro and Hopewell Valley on August 15th for a day-long session with Dr. Eddie Fergus, which focused on implicit bias, it focused on barriers as well as breakthroughs in creating truly equitable learning environments. The day culminated with our team from Princeton drafting 9 principles of equity. And these principles are still in draft form. They need to be shared and revised with staff and students and parents, but I'm going to read them now because they are guiding us in our work as we move ahead. Number 1, we are color brave, not color blind. This means we are willing to stand up and celebrate race and color and the richness that brings to our community. And it also means we're willing to stand up and call out injustice when we see it. Number 2, we provide access to academic and extracurricular opportunities to all without barriers and with support. 3, we are committed to building a diverse staff reflective of our student body. 4, we are committed to building and broadening cultural responsiveness among staff, students, and family. 5, we're committed to building, supporting, and regularly revising a high-quality, diverse curriculum representative of the world. 6, we are committed to communication with families that is open, responsive, two-way, inviting, sensitive, inclusive. 7, we will examine our data objectively, courageously, diversely, regularly. 8, our code of conduct is reflective of cultural differences and encompasses universal expectations of care and kindness. And 9, we are committed to getting to know our students as individuals and as learners and to being responsive to them in our teaching. The administrators followed their day with Dr. Fergus with a day the following week with Marceline DeBose. She was a consultant who has had experience nationally with moving districts forward in a strategic way on the issues of equity. And she spent the morning and some of the afternoon with us. She helped us identify what motivates us personally in the pursuit of equity as administrators. She helped us begin to develop a collective vision of what equity can and should look like in the Princeton Public Schools. And then she had us look at the 5 goals of our district's strategic plan to see where equity lives within that. And that exercise was a particularly powerful one for us, and it reinforced that our goals of wellness and balance, knowing every child, closing the achievement gap, innovation in teaching and learning, and care, communication, and connectedness are all fundamental to equity. We did make some small but important revisions to that strategic plan as we looked at it through the lens of equity, and I look forward to sharing those suggested revisions with the board in the next few weeks. I just close by saying the Princeton Public Schools will continue to strive to be leaders in the promotion of equity and racial literacy, and we're going to be joined in that effort this year by Dr. Tara Doty. Dr. Doty has worked with students and parents in Princeton for a number of years. She's the one I referenced earlier who led the really outstanding workshop on culturally responsive teaching. And I'm excited to share that she will be our keynote speaker for our full staff convocation next Tuesday, September 5th. And her message to us all, we are ready and we have to be. So that is my message. I'm excited for the year to begin. Lots of important work to do, and I'm grateful for all the teachers, the professionals, the administrators who have prepared to greet our students in just over a week.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Item G2, any questions or comments? Anything we need to do here, Stephanie, on G2?
Is G2
The Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act?
Yeah, so the self-assessment, all of the schools are required every year to bring their school safety teams together and examine their harassment, intimidation, and bullying policies, procedures, practices. There's a checklist that they receive from the state, and it's for each component on the checklist, there are 3 possible points. 1 point is for not meeting expectations, 2 points for meeting expectations, and 3 points for exceeding expectations. In almost every instance, we are exceeding. I think that the total possible points was 78, and our schools ranged from 72 to 78. In every instance, we were at least meeting or exceeding those expectations. So I'm pleased with the work that we're doing, and of course our number of HIB incidents is relatively low, so reflective of the work that we're doing.
Good, thank you.
Do we have to approve that? No,
it's
just
on the consent.
It's on the consent
All right.
You do
agenda.
have to approve of it.
Yep.
Okay. So now we're on to item H, which is our board committee reports. And sorry, it is on. So, so maybe I should move it closer. Yeah. So now we're on to, is that better? On to item H, which is our board committee reports. And we'll start with our student board representative, Amy Wang.
Okay, sorry.
Perfect.
So
Yeah.
recently attended the student achievement meeting, and at it I saw that Mr. Shelley and a few other supervisors had met, and they were trying to revise the freshman homework policy, which I thought was a really great idea. So they are hoping to have surveys for freshmen at the end of, like, say quarterly, I think, in order to kind of gauge the amount of homework that they were getting and also the quality of homework that they were receiving. And I see no reason why it should be only limited to freshmen. I think this should be a policy that should be expanded to reflect, like, what kind of homework that the upperclassmen are receiving and the quality and the rigor, as opposed to things like busy work. So I think being able to expand that policy onto upperclassmen, especially junior year, I think a lot of students have told me that they receive a lot of busy work from classes that really kind of detracts from their ability to get enough sleep or not feel stressed out. So I think that's something that the board should explore. Not only that, but I also met with the youth concerns group regarding the implementation of restorative justice at this district. So we talked about the nature of suspensions and how it affects students of color and prevents people who need to be at school from being in school. So I also ended up doing a lot of research over the summer on, like, the various modes of implementation that it can take place, and we're trying to see, like, if there is, so from student perspective, we were thinking of having a student court in order to assess punishment from a student level as opposed to from administrators, which students really can't connect to as well. And I was just wondering what the board wants to see in terms of a potential method for implementing restorative justice at this point, or what work that the board has done so far in terms of implementing restorative justice and trying to achieve more equity for students. And the last initiative that we were looking at in terms of just, like, updates since the last month was depression screening. So I talked to Ms. Donovan, and we kind of just, like, tossed out ideas on, like, what kind of forms it could take and also the drawbacks that could come with having depression screening in schools. I would just like to point out that there's a really great need to have it, just based off the Stanford survey results, where 47% of students reported a stress-related health or emotional problem causing them to miss 1 or more days of school, which kind of, like, highlights the need for pinpointing where issues might be happening. I know that there is a difference between being too stressed versus being depressed, but at the point where depression rates are really rising among adolescents, I think it's important to be able to provide services and make sure students understand themselves and their emotional needs. So yeah, that's just a few updates on the summer.
Thank you, Amy. If I can comment on the restorative justice, I was really glad
Yeah.
you brought that up. It's something that the administrative team at the high school is very committed to. They attended a workshop last summer on that topic, and we actually met with administrators at the high school and the middle school last week and had conversations about those types of topics and moving beyond suspension and finding other ways for students to learn and grow and help the community heal from any missteps that they may have made. So I would encourage you to reach out to the high school administration to see how you could incorporate your ideas with the work that they're already doing.
Okay, great.
Yep.
I'd also comment on your idea about, for one thing, I'm very happy about the fact that freshman homework is getting measured, because I've said many times what gets measured gets managed. And if you're not measuring something, it's impossible to manage it. So really great that they're starting with freshman homework, and they've made a commitment to an hour and a half of homework a night, and now we're going to measure that and see how it works, which is perfect. But I think you've got a great idea there, which is without necessarily setting a line in the sand about what homework is appropriate, what quantum of homework is appropriate for sophomore, junior, or senior, it would be nice to know how much there is, and by down to the classroom level, just to understand it, right? And once you understand it, maybe you change it, maybe you keep it the same, but at least you know. So it would be a really great thing to do, and maybe now that we have this sort of procedure in place for how to do this, we can extend it, I hope, to next, in the year ahead to higher classes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of students would really appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on then, the committee report highlights. We'll start with the facilities, which did not meet this month, given developments, and so there'll be no report. Moving on to finance, Justin.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. The Finance Committee met this afternoon from 4:30 to 6 p.m. Stephanie Kennedy, myself, Bill Hare, Greg Stankiewicz, and Connie Witter were there. In addition, we did have one of the members of the public that was there, Beth Bertrand, who I believe is, she was able to listen in. And just a note to the public, that is an open meeting. We will be holding those meetings on Tuesday evenings that are the same night as board meetings going forward at 6 o'clock. You'll get a notice every time that we have one of these meetings, but just as a reminder, we welcome the public there. We discussed a bunch of different things in that hour and a half. We will be adopting the adoption of the Finance Committee agenda, incorporating that into the board docs application that we have, that our agenda is on. And that will be, I think we're kind of the trial guinea pigs for that. All the committees will eventually be on it, but we're going to be the first. So we discussed that. We discussed projects on the high school office trailers and just how far that is moving along. We discussed the ongoing 2016-2017 audit, and we will have final results of that for a meeting on October 23rd at 6:30, and that will be then available to the public October 24th, right, Stephanie? And in addition to that, we just discussed the referendum. We discussed some of the things in the paper regarding the Westminster situation, what the alternatives are going forward for the school district, and again, the referendum that will be upcoming at some point. And that's it. The next meeting is going to be September
25th?
7th.
27th?
No, yeah, I think it's, no, 20, no, that's the 26th, September 26th, 6 o'clock in this room, Valley Road.
Okay, thanks, Justin. Now, before we move on to personnel, just a heads up, since for policy, both Betsy and Daphne are out today, so, and we should have talked about this before, but between Greg and Bill, do one of you have something ready? Good. I just want to give you 2 minutes to collect your thoughts if you need to do that. So, okay, so with that, then we'll move on to Connie and personnel.
Okay. The Personnel Committee met August 28th at 8:45 to 11:30. Observations and evaluations. The committee discussed the Alternative Professional Project, APP. The purpose of the APP is to increase the focus of meaningful transformative and innovative methods in the classroom. The committee approved the APP process. This will be placed on the board agenda for tonight. The committee inquired whether the teachers could share their research to the full board in the fall. Mentoring requirements, year 1 through 7. The committee discussed the program's requirements have been redesigned to include 2 separate programs, new teachers and teachers that are new to the district. Okay, Superintendent Cochran will hold a 5 one-hour workshop during the course of the school year for all new teachers and professional staff. These workshops will provide additional support and guidance for teachers in their first year in the district. Won't do new hires, we've done that, okay. Sick leave bank. The committee reviewed the sick leave bank program. The purpose is to assist employees experience a catastrophic illness or life-altering injury. The bank was established in 2014 and is made possible by volunteers from staff members each year. They volunteer at least one day to the bank. Okay. Job descriptions. There were quite a few new job descriptions this time around because the technology department has been reorganized. So they've done a change in the job titles, compensations we're giving to certain positions because they're doing additional work now. But this has not affected our budget. So even though they've had these changes, it's budget neutral. So we're not spending any more money on that. Also, there was a garden educator. That position was also put on the agenda to be reviewed by the Personnel Committee. Residency Committee. The committee reviewed the residency of all students in the Princeton Public Schools and Princeton Charter Schools has begun its work on ensuring that all students are properly domiciled in the district. This committee is expected to have initial findings for us in late September. The committee reviewed the list of August leaves of absences, and the committee also discussed other confidential matters and programs and staffing. The next meeting will be September 18th, 845 Valley Road.
Okay, thanks, Connie. And just so the public knows, there's an addendum, personnel addendum, in addition to what is in the agenda in the book. And then now, Greg, I guess it's your turn on policy.
As the superintendent said, it's been a busy summer for a lot of people around here. The policy committee has met twice since our last board meeting on July 20th and August 18th. The results of those, and one thing I wanted to just say is that we welcome public input. We've had great public participation. I think it's been really, really useful and helpful in guiding us. So we'd like to, extend the welcome to anyone who wants to appear at upcoming policy meetings. So the result of the work has been there's going to be 3 policy for first reading on today's agenda. And those are going to be 0168, recording board meetings, 3126, district mentoring program, 7461, district sustainability policy. First reading is just that. It doesn't take effect until the second reading, but this is the preliminary, putting it on the agenda. In addition, we have 7 policy reviews up for second reading tonight, and those are going to be 1240, the evaluation of superintendent, policy 2415.06, which is the unsafe school choice options, policy 3221, evaluation of teachers, policy 3222, evaluation of teaching staff members, excluding teachers and administrators. Policy 3223, evaluation of administrators, excluding principals, vice principals, and assistant principals. Policy 3224, evaluation of principals, vice principals, and assistant principals. And finally, policy 5620, which is expulsion. We will be meeting again on September 11th at 1 p.m. here in Valley Road. If anyone from the public wants to join us, that's a regular policy meeting. In addition, there's going to be a meeting on the wellness policy, and I assume that's with the Wellness Committee on September 6th at 1 p.m., also at Valley Road. Is that right?
Sure, didn't know it, but yeah, that's fine.
That's what Betsy asked me to advertise. So,
So policy meeting on 9/6?
policies at 9/11.
Oh,
At
9/11.
Uh-huh. And the wellness policy is 9/6.
Okay, thanks, Greg, and I would encourage members of the public to attend all these meetings, but I know that policy has become from almost nothing whenever it started not too long ago to the hottest ticket in town, so you guys are doing something that's good and interesting. And then finally, student achievement, I believe, Debbie, are you gonna give the report tonight?
Yes.
Yeah, Debbie
Yep.
Bronfeld.
So student achievement met in this room on Friday, August 18th from 10 to 1. We had a lot of people. It was great. Minutes from July 13th were approved. One overnight field trip is on the agenda tonight, which was approved at the achievement meeting, pending an additional statement indicating that all students will be included regardless of ability to pay per board policy. The committee discussed a change in the way day-long field trips will be approved during the coming year. Teachers and principals will be asked to submit individual proposals to the Curriculum and Instruction Office this year prior to each field trip in order to compile a new updated field trip list along with information such as connection to the curriculum, cost, source of funding, number of buses, etc. The new Princeton Public Schools Supervisor of Guidance, Christina Donovan, attended the achievement meeting to share many changes to the freshman transition that will be implemented this year. Such changes include more of a focus on building personal connections during orientation. Counselors will plan to visit the 9th and 10th grade classes, keeping an eye out for students during lunch the first week of school, and guidance counselors will also be hosting a back-to-school night for the first time. This year, there will also be a new initiative related to current 8th grade students that include the high school counselors visiting 8th grade students more often and inviting rising 9th graders to PHS for special events. Mark Shelley, Supervisor of Humanities, and Eddie Cohen, Supervisor of Science, attended Student Achievement also to discuss the work that took place over the summer by teachers and supervisors from the subject areas of math, science, and the humanities that focused on the freshman experience. This work focused on a reduction in 9th grade homework. Some of the changes being put in place this fall include reviewing the quality of homework being offered, looking at large assignments, asking students for feedback, again, about how long their homework took, and extending more flexibility to students regarding homework. A couple other things we discussed, that we will be providing schedules in advance to JW students with special needs for whom it would be beneficial. These will be emailed out this week. A draft of the 2018-19 school calendar was looked at. Preliminary data from the first exit survey distributed families who are not returning to the district in the fall was looked at, and a parent lecture series for 2017-18 was also discussed. The next achievement meeting has been changed. It will meet on Monday, September 18th at noon. Members are very encouraged to come.
Okay, thanks, Debbie. With that, we move on to our second public forum of the night. This is for agenda items only. This is item I on the agenda, and if anyone would like to speak on agenda items, please come to the podium now and identify yourself and what agenda item you'd like to speak on. And seeing no one approaching the podium, we will move on to item J, which is the policies that Greg referred to. And again, since we're doing all our consent items, there's really only one roll call vote item, which is coming up next. But, so this is for discussion only. Yeah, and do we need to have a motion to begin discussion, or we just do the discussion?
You can just do the discussion.
Okay.
and we'll make the motion.
Make the motions at the end. All right. So any discussions on the policies that are on the agenda item J? or questions? Okay. Hearing none, then we will move on to item K, which is personnel. And this is a roll call vote for K1, which are the personnel actions at K1 and the addendum that I referenced earlier that board members should all have. So can I have a motion to, for a discussion of K1? Thanks, Justin, and a second. Bill? Any questions or comments on K1? And hearing none, it's a roll call vote, right, Ms. Kennedy?
Yes, sir. Patrick Sullivan,
Yes.
Debbie Braunfeld,
Yes.
Justin Doran,
Yes.
Bill Hare,
Yes.
Fern Sproul,
Yes.
Greg Stankiewicz,
Yes.
and Connie Witter.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can I actually jump in with a comment?
Sure.
On this?
You can comment on it.
Because I want to congratulate the board. You have just appointed our new Director of Technology and Innovation, who happens to be in the room tonight, Mr. Andrew Levine. Andrew, you want to just make yourself known? So this is a new position for the Princeton Public Schools. We had a network manager before, but we were really looking for someone who had experience on educational and classroom technology and a sense of vision about where education could go and technology could go in this district. And I was thrilled when we were able to find Andrew. He has spent the last 5 years as the Director of Technology in Nutley. He came incredibly well recommended by a number of people. I spoke to his former superintendent, who said, get ready for a really fun ride with this guy. But it was clear that he's had experience in putting together a technology plan and putting together a technology budget, in supervising teachers, which he does as part of his job, supervising media specialists and others. He has put together a one-on-one program up there and a bring your own device program in Nutley. But I like the fact that he spends a lot of time in classrooms with kids. That was the thing that really struck me, that he really is helping teachers do whatever they want to do and experiencing it with them, talking to students. And then at the same time, as superintendent said, he's the guy who's going to show up in the summer in shorts and a t-shirt and be pulling wires in your classroom. So we're thrilled that you're going to be joining us, Andrew. I had thought that Mr. Montgomery might apply for the job, but he didn't. But I'm glad that you're here, and you're going to be joining a great team. And the board will also see on the agenda, I don't know if we got to it yet, that there's a little bit of reorganization of our technology department, and that's listed in here too, so that we're trying to make sure that we are positioned as a school district to truly move forward fast with technology. So your work is cut out for you, but we're excited that you'll be joining us.
Well, good. I'm not sure I need to point this out, but I will point it out that this whole reorganization of the technology function within the school was done over many months, thanks to the administration and Steve Cochran. But I would just point out that we did it by either adding, taking part positions, and this is a net
budget neutral. Yes.
And so
it's always
we're always mindful about growing administration faster than we're growing as an overall enterprise, and we're not doing that here. So just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that we're mindful of the budget while we're making sure that we have the right technology resources in place. Okay, so that gets us to items K2 through 4. Any questions or comments on those items? And hearing none, then we'll move to item L. And this is item L 1 through 4. That includes some of the items that Debbie mentioned in her report. Any questions or comments on L 1 through 4?
Yeah, I had a question on L3. L3, yeah. Oh, so sorry. Sorry, I had a question on L3. We received these grants, and I guess for me, I was just curious, if we had detail on what some of the grants pay for. And I don't know if anybody has that here. I mean, it says Title I, but I don't always know what Title I is, Title II.
Yeah.
That's, I just don't.
This falls under curriculum and instruction. I know that Kim McReynolds in Annie's office. Welcome, Annie. This is your first official board meeting as the new assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction. I know Kim has been working on this. Title II is a lot of professional development. Almost that's primarily how we're using Title II. Title I supports a lot of our like our summer programs, some of our support basic skills or accelerated intervention programs, and then Title III is a lot of for our ELL and ELL students. And Title IV is a new one this year. We don't get a whole, I think it was
10,000.
Well, 10,000, we have to share 4,000 with our non-public, so we really have about 6,000 that we're using. And we're looking actually to do something innovative with that because the money is so small that we get and that other districts have gotten for Title IV. We're actually trying to form a sort of informal consortium with some of our other districts to pool our funds and with a primary focus on equity and training in implicit bias, culturally responsive teaching, but we're also looking at opioid training and work in that area. And there's one more area that we're focused on. I can't remember what it is.
And
Annie.
is this a similar amount that we've gotten in the past?
The Title IV is actually a new grant.
Well, I meant all of them, too.
Overall,
It's a little
it's
less
a little
this
bit
year.
less.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, and by a little less, how much are we talking about? Like $50,000 less?
About that.
Yeah,
Overall.
overall.
Generally, it goes up, but a little bit, but this year it went down.
So these are federal grants.
Thank you.
Annie, was there anything you wanted to add that I might have missed?
No, I think you hit it all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's no more comments on items L, then we'll turn to items M, which are the superintendent recommendations around special education. Any questions or comments there?
Well, I had one, like the first one for M1. So this is summer funds that we've already spent, right? Is that what I'm reading?
Yes.
Okay.
These are educational placements, so basically special education placements.
And so you're asking us just to approve paying for what's already happened, or?
These are, probably, yes. Yeah, they would have been, because they were summer. They were either not put on earlier.
Or we may not have got the bills
may not have-
until
may
the,
not have
yeah.
the-
And I guess the other thing is,
Most of them are replacements, or, prior year, like they were in the same place the prior year. Continuing, like,
Okay.
Yeah.
and
Not
price-wise,
revised,
dollar-wise,
continuing.
is it similar to last year?
That I can't tell you. They would, the schools determine what the rates are, so we have no control over that.
And I'm just curious what we as a district pay each summer. Like, did we pay the same amount last summer? I'm just curious to
Oh,
know, are
we
we
pay a
paying
lot.
more, are we paying less?
No, we would probably pay the same with just an increase, like a annual increase of whatever the going rate is.
Okay.
The private schools are not capped, like historically are not capped.
Okay.
There's a movement to make them capped in their tuition payments, but that's
And
not
that's
fully
coming
in place.
from kind of where?
School districts are approaching the state, saying that they have to control the tuition because our budgets are controlled. So,
Oh.
Well, it's an issue, it's always been an issue when whenever we talk about the budget, we talk about things that we're subject to a 2% annual increase. And that's one of the items besides healthcare and other things that is not capped, is the amount of, the dollar amount, Debbie, in that is just the number of children, that's based on the needs of the child. And there's nothing that we can, we're
No, I
required to do
understand that. I'm
No, but just-
curious, like, compared to other years, I'm just kind
Oh,
of curious what
yeah,
it's
I mean,
been.
it
Has
does-
it grown? Has it decreased?
if anything, it would have decreased that we had more students.
Yeah, that's
In
what
that
I would say.
sense.
I would imagine most of these summer placements, I wish Mickey were here to corroborate, but I would imagine most of these summer places are extensions of the school year placement that we've had for these students. And
That's
we are bringing more and more students back into district, and Mickey mentioned that to us tonight. I think that we brought in 5 more students. So I'm hoping the number is going down, but I don't have that comparison.
Okay. Okay. No, and I find it interesting that all the school districts are starting to push back, you know, on the
Well, the
cap.
school districts have been pushing back for quite a few years, now the state's starting to listen.
Right. No,
That's really,
yeah.
that's,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Very good. Anything else on M? Okay, and then we move to item N, which is much of what Justin referred to in his report, Business and Finance. Any questions on items N1 through 8? Or comments? Okay. And with that, we're at item O, which is a consent vote on all of the above in one big vote. So now we need a motion for, I guess, the raising of all of those prior agenda items.
So we got
Open for
Greg.
discussion, and the
The vote.
The vote. So can I have a motion? Thanks, Greg, and a second, Justin.
Okay, you can all vote. Okay, motion passes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So now we're on to item P, any old business or new business, which is an odd agenda item. If you think about that one, is that a requirement? Because everything on our agenda
No, we
is either
can-
old business or new
We can
business.
take that off,
Yeah.
actually, we don't
So-
really, that's old, that's from way back. I
Yeah.
can take that off in future.
Okay, and with that, we're on
I
our
think it's kind
final.
of a catch-all.
Yeah, it
for
is a
something else
catch-all,
to talk
but if
about.
you bring up anything, we'll say, well, that's old business, and, you know. So now we're on item Q, which is our final public comment, any topic at all. I noticed someone dropped off a little message to all of us with a lifesaver inside, so thank you for that, whoever that might be. But anyone who has comments, now is the time, and if you can just please identify yourself and where you live.
Rod Montgomery from William Patterson Court, curmudgeon taxpayer. And I do confess to being the perpetrator of the handout, which I'll get to in a moment. I'd like to thank the videographer, Mr. Gabe Shackney, I believe? Shackney, for the excellent speaker versus slide placement in the video of Principal Snyder's presentation on the high school changes planned. I cannot count how many professional conference videos have been ruined either by fixation on the speaker who is talking about the slides, which are invisible, or videographers who have placed the speaker within the video so that the speaker's image obliterates the key content of the slides. And Mr. Shackney very excellently avoided those errors. Okay. A meeting or two ago, I brought up the difference between the extent of review required for a $100,000 purchase of computers and the review required for a $2,000 purchase of textbooks. I thank Ms. Spahn, who is not here, for reminding me that the board's review of textbook purchases is more for content than for cost, which I applaud and which I had overlooked. I still think that the board should look more closely at computer purchases and perhaps have a form indicating a few key matters related to each purchase, such as, is this a replacement or is this an expansion? Why is the replacement necessary? And perhaps the new Director of Technology and Innovation will put that sort of thing on his agenda, not necessarily as a high priority. At the 13 June meeting, the board approved a consent item that the Board of Education endorse a summer education option for high school students to obtain credits for graduation through EduCere, I think, EduCere. My fragments of remaining high school Latin want me to pronounce it educere, for the summer of 2017. Now, this EduCere is an online student-paid program. I invite the board to think about this option in the context of its policy of non-exclusion of students on the basis of inability to pay. There are, in the search I did earlier this evening, 777 high school courses in this EduCere. I suspect that the board intends that only the financial literacy course and not any of the math courses be used. I don't know. There are also some phys ed offerings. Perhaps the board should consider what offerings it intends to approve. The reason I suggest considering this endorsement in the context of the policy on student inability to pay is that the financial literacy course in particular costs $199.50. So in effect, this option is available to the students who can afford it, but not to those who cannot. And I just suggest that the board consider whether that is the board's intent. Okay, to the handout. It's in the form of a little envelope. My intention is that you look first at the Law of Unintended Consequences. The formulation in the handout is my favorite, although there are many others. It comes from Robert Jordan's fantasy series of novels, The Wheel of Time. For the viewing audience, I'll recite it. Whether or not what you do has the effect you want, it will have 3 at least you never expected, and one of those usually unpleasant. I think that's probably close to what Dr. Carell had in mind when he invited the board's attention to this law previously. Okay, now I'd like you to open the package, hold the little treat aside for the moment, but consider the story, which is the story of the Cobra effect, which illustrates the law of unintended consequences. The British colonial administration of the city of Delhi, India, tried to reduce the number of venomous snakes in the city by placing a boundary on cobra skins. A cobra farming industry arose. The government repealed the bounty. The cobra farmers released their now worthless snakes into the city, and in the end, there were more snakes than there had been before the bounty. And there's an academic publication reference here. So that illustrates the, I suppose it's a variation or application of the law of unintended consequences on the back of the handout, which is Campbell's law. The more any quantitative social indicator is used for social decision-making, the more subject it will be to corruption pressures, and the more apt it will be to distort and corrupt the social processes it is intended to monitor. It's a bit more specific than the law of unintended consequences, and it applies more narrowly. But it applies to the HIB rating scores that were reported earlier this evening. It applies to the personnel rating scores that I understand you are obliged by law and regulation to compute for your teachers and administrators. It applies to numerical grades, especially of homework. I suggest to you that the cheating that so distresses everyone is motivated by the high stakes nature of the numerical grades that are assigned to homework. Finally, it applies to the execrable and now defunct No Child Left Behind quantitative scoring systems. There is a tension here between Campbell's law and the management principle that Mr. Sullivan invited attention to earlier today, that what gets measured gets managed. The problem is that when you start measuring things, the usefulness of the measurement starts to deteriorate. I'll have more to say about this in the future when I expound upon W. Edwards Deming's system of profound knowledge, but not this evening. Finally, concerning the treat enclosed in the handout, there is a two-pronged instance of the law of unintended consequences associated with the treat. The treat is sugar sweetened, which means that it will have the unintended consequence of rotting your teeth. There is an alternative sugar-free variant of that treat, which I considered. But substituting the sugar-free variant results in having aspartame and sorbitol in the treat. Aspartame is poisonous to those afflicted with the rather rare but serious disease of phenylketonuria. I'm sorry, it's getting tired out. And it also, the sugar-free variant also contains sorbitol, which is a mild laxative. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for all your hard work on behalf of Princeton students.
Didn't eat mine.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mr. Montgomery. Any other questions or comments from the public?
Take my board hat off for a second, since we're not allowed to talk about teachers as a board member. Bill Hare, resident Jefferson Road. I want to briefly thank one of the teachers who got an email from in the last couple weeks about the AP chemistry class, and he reported the results, and it's not just about test scores, but the numbers were amazing. The national average is a 2-point-something, and his class was a 4-point-something. All the kids did amazingly well, and I'm amazed that you have a professor like that in the high school. I wish I'd had teachers like that in college. So thank you, Dr. Carell, for a wonderful year.
I'm not 100% sure, Bill, but I think you could have said that right from your chair. Yeah. So you just save you the trip next time.
But it added some drama.
Yeah,
it was good.
Yeah, and congratulations, Dr. Carell. Thank you for all your work. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, then with that, I think we're ready for a motion to adjourn. Justin and Vern? And all in favor? Is this a vote, or can you do this by hands? The old-fashioned way?
Oh, all right.
All right, well, you can put it up for vote, it's fine.
It's pretty unanimous, Stephanie. Hey.
Okay. Okay,
Okay.
thank you, everyone.